Welcome to Keys to Living and with Herb Keener, and I am Herb Keener. Well, today we're going to talk about a myriad of things. I come before you with a heavy heart. That Texas shooting was just totally outrageously evil. And we're going to talk a little bit about that when we get into the show. And I'm going to first talk a little bit about my book. And folks, I see that most people are not even taking a look at it on herbkeener.com, where you can purchase this book. And it's very reasonable, and it has a lot of information in about how not to do things. Because everything I'd done in the time I was born until I met the Lord was just so many bad decisions. And if you got young people in your household, even elderly people that can see what they missed in this world by being a regular person. I never was a regular person, probably never will be. But what I will be will always be speaking about what God does in your life. Because if you think for a minute that you're here all by yourself and not doing anything, God has other plans that you know nothing about. So don't get caught up in the feeling bad situation. Today we're going to talk about a lot of that. And if we end up with any dead air getting close to the end, I'm going to talk to you about a chapter or two in my book. So right now I'd like for you to go to herbkeener.com. Take a look at that. There's a place in there that'll show you a few pages in my book. And then you'll be able to determine whether you want to read it or not. It's full of suspense and craziness. So I just ask you to go take a look, and you may not be sorry. So now we're just going to take away from that, and we're going to walk into a place that has to do with June 7th. Now, Mike Briggs is running for city council of Fresno. Now, you that haven't made up your mind of who you're going to put that X next to, you need to take a look at this clip that we have on Mike Briggs. What he done when he was there the first time many years ago, and what he plans to do when he gets back in. So I'm asking you to go to Central Valley Talk, get in there and take a look at this clip that we have. It gives you all kinds of information, but in the first thing it does, it tells you what he done. So if you look and see what he accomplished during the years he was in there many years ago, but he still has that power in his heart and his mind. Now he even has more knowledge and more wisdom, so he could even do a greater thing. I need for you to go take a look at that clip, and I need for you on June 7th, you people of Fresno, don't look out at how many TV spots everybody else has gotten, all the mail you get in the thing. Take a look at Mike Briggs. Take a look at what he's done, what he plans to do. His plan, number one, is to heal the land. And if you think for a minute that this land doesn't need healing, you stayed cooped up in your house way too long and you need to get out. Because this land is just absolutely burning like the fires of hell. There needs to be a change. If there's not a change, we'll destroy ourselves soon. But I ask you, residents of Fresno, take a look, Mike Briggs. And when it comes June 7th, put your vote in. Mail it in. Go to the booth. Check that mark next to his name, because you're going to be doing a great and wonderful thing. And years down the road, you're going to say, man, I'm glad I put that X next to Mike Briggs' name. So take care of that. June 7th, right here in Fresno. This is the last opportunity I'm going to be able to ask you to do that. You will not be sorry. He's a man of honor. And that's what we need sitting on the councils today.
Mike Briggs did it before. Mike Briggs will do it again.
I started the first ever foot and bicycle patrols in the tower.
Really?
That was my thing. I got that going.
He will bring them back. Councilman Mike Briggs got the first police helicopter for Fresno, eliminating high-speed chases. Yeah! Councilman Mike Briggs oversaw the largest growth in the police department. Bringing Mike Briggs back to the city council will bring safety back to our community.
This is Mike Briggs. I will make Fresno safer. I approve of this ad.
So, because I'm going to tell you, Fresno needs a change. There isn't a day go by that somebody doesn't fall from a bullet or fall from some craziness that's going on. Help us help you. Vote for Mike Briggs. God bless. Well, today, like I said, we're going to talk about a myriad of things. Because number one, we need to know, I need to ask you the question, who do you perceive yourself to be? Who do you perceive yourself in this time of, we are in this large world. Now, how do you perceive yourself? Do we have a purpose? Are we just living until we die? Just filling up space for no reason? Let me tell you, God has a plan for each and every one of us on this planet. And I want you to know that without knowing who you are, you won't be able to know what you're supposed to do. So today, like I said, I'm looking at all the pictures of the 21 people that were killed in that Texas shooting at the school. It breaks my heart. Now, I'm telling you, it's just amazing. There's 16 10-year-olds. There's 2 11-year-olds and 1 9-year-old. And then you have the 2 adults, 48 and 44. Now, for one man to rise up and be able to devastate that many people's lives, somebody wasn't watching. Now, I've seen on the news where his mother said, "My son wasn't a monster." My. Just taking one of those lives, one of those 10-year-olds' life, it creates the monster in him. And we're talking about 19 children, 10 years and younger. What would you call him then? Now, for me, I would say he was probably more or less the devil himself. To take 19 children's lives. But here's the deal. The question I ask you at the start, who do you perceive yourself to be? Everybody that was around this young man, especially the mother, should have known something's going on in this man's head for this to be played out like this, for him to buy 2 assault rifles and all that. Somebody, the person he bought the rifles from, had to see the corruption in his eyes, the evilness. So we need to start looking around, not just walk from A to B, B to C, and D to E and F, and not just exist on this planet, but look out for protection of others. Just imagine if this could have been prevented, these 21 people would be alive today. But instead of trying to do something, you have naturally the bullies that created this animosity inside this. But in order to play out this type of action, there has to be absolute mental mental issues. The mother, I don't know whether the father or anything like that had anything to do with it, but I know the mother herself. And then to make a statement that my son is not a monster, come on. That should have never been printed in the paper, because number one, he was beyond the monster. But these people, two of the teachers, naturally being bright, young teachers that cared about their students. That's more than likely why they're dead. So I'm asking you, just take account of yourself. Now, if I seen that guy walking down the road with two rifles, I don't care where I was at or what I was doing, I would do my best to run over him, to stop and do something, because nobody can be at any good walking with two assault rifles. Then on top of that, they're talking about the mistakes. You know, the mistakes are made. Whatever happened, happened. It is what it is. These children are not coming back. So we need to start taking account of who we are. How much devastation can you imagine in the lives of these poor people? Every child, 19 of them, had brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, cousins, their parents or grandparents. How it just reaches out so far, 19 times, and then with the two teachers, devastation of their whole entire family. This should not have been. And it's the idiot behind the gun. The gun is just like a tool of any other kind. But when you get a crazy man able to get an assault rifle, then you got problems. I'm not smart enough, nowhere close to smart enough, to figure out the gun thing. That's for someone else way smarter than me. But I know this one thing. You need to be looking at the people more than you need to be looking at them guns. But again, I don't know about gun things and all that. But what I do know is we're missing 21 people off of this planet that should be here today. So start taking account of who you are and what God put you here for. God probably put somebody here on that planet to make sure this didn't happen, but he or she is off doing something else, not in the right place where they needed to be. So I want to pull off of that, and I ask everybody out there to please pray for each one of these 19 families and the two teachers. They need our prayer. I heard one of the congressmen say, prayer doesn't work, but gun control does. Wow. We can do anything we want. And maybe change things, maybe not. But when God is in control, things will happen. For that man to stand up in Congress and say, God can't do this, so we need to do it by gun control. I don't know where his head's at, but I know where it needs to be. So I'm going to pull off of that. That is one of the saddest things in my life. I'm 81 years old, and I got to tell you, that's the saddest thing I've run up on in my entire life. But again, I want to get back to us. How are we going to help, like in our little town? Like I live in Tulare. I broadcast in Fresno. So Fresno, Tulare. In Tulare, when I go places, I found myself looking and seeing. I mean, they're killing people every day down there. I don't know what I need to do, but I know if I'm where God wants me to be, I can help someone. I don't know what I'm smart enough to help them with, but I know one thing: if I see somebody hurting, I'm going to do my best to take them out of the danger. So that's what we need to start looking at. Start looking at these crazies walking around, and we know it's just a matter of time before they flip out. People are gonna, you know what? Here's my concern about what happened at that school. Our schools are going to begin to look like prisons. They're going to have high fences and razor wire, and everybody that comes and goes is going to have to go through a monitor and a scanner to be sure to. What kind of education will that be for our children if we subject them to that? But if it continues like this, what else can you do? Now, I don't care how many guns you take away from people. If people want to do something wicked, they're going to do it. We got to start looking at the people next door. We got to start looking at the people around us. And that again is something I believe in my heart that Mike Briggs, if he gets on this council, that he'll be able to see something, to implant something that will begin to be a benefit, a plus. Everything I've seen them try to do so far is a minus. I mean, everything they try to do, they politicize everything. They're even trying to politicize this. But I'm telling you, people need to know that they're safe. And if they're not, we're going to have a whole bunch of people boarded up in their houses, trembling and just watching TV, and then the only thing that comes across TV is all the ugliness that's going on outside, so that's going to keep them in there. So I guess the thing to invest in now is home delivery, because pretty soon everybody's going to be in their home afraid to come out. But what do you think our schools are going to look like? If we're going to educate these children, if we're going to keep them safe, pretty soon you're going to see armed guards, big fences, razor wire, just like we're in a prison. Like every school is going to be a prison that the kids will be sentenced to every day and let out every night. What kind of education would that be? Fear. That's what we would teach them, is fear. God says fear is not the answer. We need to do. People need to get together and pray about what's going on in this world, what's happening to us. And the other thing is, how soon will our schools be looking like prisons? Very soon, if it continues like it is. So it's easy to do nothing. It takes effort to do something. You know, we need to change these sad times, but we need to change it in someone's life. We need to start giving hope, not despair. Show compassion, not indifference. Show love is alive, not hateful words. The language you see on television programs, the language you see youngsters doing, and it's just mind-boggling. It blows me away when you see a 6, 7-year-old kid using the F-bomb just one right after another. Now, you know absolutely in their household that word is a household word. So how's he going to know any better? And the more he does, the worse he gets. So like I said, I'm not smart enough to know the answers. But some of you out there have an opportunity. I don't have the same opportunity you have. I will take my opportunity when it comes if I'm called to do something. I would have no problem putting my life on the line if I could save some youngster or, or even my wife. She knows I would put my life on the line for that. That's what we're missing in these days. We think we're so self-important that how dare anybody think that I need to die? I'd rather let them die and me stay here. But see, we can't draw a circle around our footsteps and say, this is all I know and this is all I want to know. That's how we got here. Everybody ignoring what they really needed to do. So I'm telling you, without a doubt, we need to start looking. And for those of you that say you can't do anything, let me tell you about a young man, Christopher Duffy. I'm going to tell you, at 10 years old, I heard this young man sing, "Open up the eyes of my heart, Lord. I need to see you." Now, we're talking 10 years old. Now, here is who Christopher Duffy is. He was born hooked on cocaine, terribly hooked on it. He was blind, and he has autism. He can't see anything. And he has convulsions all the time. But he stood there at 10 years old singing, "Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. I need to see you." Now, this child had every reason in the world to be angry and mad and frustrated and, but he chose peace. He chose love. Now, you people that are out there and nice and healthy and saying you can't do this and you can't do that, you need to get on YouTube and put Christopher Duffy's name in and listen to that song he sings. Now, he's up 19, 20 years old now, and he's still singing the song. So don't tell me there's nothing you can do. But even myself, sometimes I feel like I don't know what to do, where to go, how to do. But you know what we need to do is we just need to figure out when something happens, what would we do? Let's prepare for this world that's so ugly right now. It doesn't have to stay that way. I'm going to bring you some good news into the fact. Now, I watched the news, and these 5 children back in 2013, 2014, because of their parents abandoning them. These are 5 children. 5 African-American children. Beautiful little kids. So now they were 12, 9, 6, 3, and 2. Now this Caucasian couple took them in as foster care. But now they are adopted. This year they were adopted. Now these children would have been separated and sent along their way. Now this couple knew what they was going. They interviewed them. That's another thing. You could get in the news. Just put it in there, 5 children adopted, and this will come up. They interviewed the lady first. She said there's no way we were going to let them split up. They talked to the man. He said, I knew these were going to be my children. Now see, these 2 were in a position to do something. They could have just easily done the foster thing and probably got a few bucks, but they adopted every one of them. Them children were happy. You need to go and look at that video. I'm telling you what, they were happy, happy, happy in a courtroom, blessed. And they allowed the 9-year-old to put the gavel down and say, court adjourned. And that was a blessing for him and his siblings. So there is good things that happen. There's things that go on that just like that. When I run across that, it just blessed my heart. Because number one, there's 5 children that would have never knew their sisters and brothers if the system would have done what they wanted to do. But these 2 people stood up and they said, no way. We are not allowing them to be split up. So it's exciting to know that there's good things that happen. In Sacramento, this homeless man, when shooting started, 4 young women were screaming, bumping into each other. This homeless guy that was sleeping in between the place, he rushed and run them into this little corner and stood in front of them and protected them from being harmed. And the father of one of the daughters said, I'll never stop feeding this man and bringing him food and all that. He was a store owner down the road. He was scared to death that something happened to his daughter. But this homeless man jumped up, pushed him into the corner, and then stood there in case anything come on. It was a drive-by shooting. So there's people standing up for the right thing to do. We just got to know, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to take a minute break here. And then when I come back, I'm going to tell you a couple other stories and see what else comes out. God bless.
Mike Briggs did it before. Mike Briggs will do it again.
I started the first ever foot and bicycle patrols in the tower. That was my thing. I got that going.
He will bring them back. Councilman Mike Briggs got the first police helicopter for Fresno, eliminating high-speed chases. Yeah! Councilman Mike Briggs oversaw the largest growth in the police department. Bringing Mike Briggs back to the city council will bring safety back to our community.
This is Mike Briggs. I will make Fresno safer. I approve of this ad.
Gained a lot, learned a lot, and got a lot of love. If it weren't for the knowledge that I had gained from the classes at PCC, I probably wouldn't be the mom I am today. See, there it goes.
I would love you to meet my son Aaron. My situation was very difficult. I didn't know how my life was going to turn out.
We graduated in June 2010 and we got married in July. And through family, the Pregnancy Care Center changed our lives.
The Pregnancy Care Center was a huge, vital part in helping me walk through that pregnancy, in educating me and loving on me during that time.
Sometimes good intentions hurt rather than help. For just $1.76 per meal, the Fresno Rescue Mission offers more than food. We offer hope. Please donate today.
I'm back. Well, as I was telling you about the things, that there is good things that happen out there, even though the wickedness overpowers it in the news. It almost seems like they love telling you about the bad things and they just toss aside the good things. Well, I'm going to be here today and I'm going to talk about some of the good things that happen. But right now I'm going to read Ephesians 6:1. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor thy father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with thee, and thou mayest live long on earth. And you fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Boy, is that about as opposite as you can get what's going on? I can remember back when I was a youngster that when you read something like that, you felt it, and you felt that's what's going on. Well, all the do-gooders of this world is taking the rights away from the father and mother. Now, they don't have to tell, if you're 12 years old, they don't have to tell anything. The school doesn't have to ask permission to give them COVID shots. They can just do it. They don't have to tell them about their sexual preference. They just deal with it. They don't have to tell a parent anything. So that they pretty much stomped on God's word when they dealt with that. But here's a story I'm going to tell you that just broke my heart. But there is a good ending. That it's really, really terrible. This man, 35, 40 years old, killed his wife and daughter in front of his 9-year-old son. I mean, it was a bloody mess. They showed some of the pictures. Then he turned around and stabbed this young 9-year-old boy 20 times and then set him on fire. But he survived. And what does our justice system do? Their father is going to, he was his own lawyer. He's going to defend himself. So he grilled his 9-year-old son on the stand. How does anything end up like that? He stabbed him 20 times, set him on fire, and the young man still has a lot of scars from the fire, 20 times, and then he's allowed to talk to him. You know what his question was to him? He said, well, how did I hurt you? And the kid, being a very strong mind, said, you stabbed me. I mean, you talk about an idiot. Now, there's an idiot. But needless to say, he got life in prison. But this 9-year-old's mother and his sister no longer exist. So what happened to him? The cop that come to the investigation, the one that discovered the blood and all the things bad about the thing, the one that arrested this guy, adopted this young man. And this young man is so vibrant, plays basketball, and they interviewed him and said, what did you think when your father talked to you on the stand? He said, I stood my ground. That's going to be a powerful young man when he grows up. 9 years old, he's got to go through this. And again, somebody stood up when it was time to stand up. This cop he said it was the absolute worst thing he had ever dealt with. He had been on the force for 19 years. But then he seen the boy. I mean, it showed pictures of him all hooked up. And you go to the YouTube and you can see these images. This is a success story. This 9-year-old is with a man that loves him, and they love each other. They give such a great hug on the thing. But look at this. How do we get to the point where some idiot decides that he needs to kill these two people? And, well, he actually wanted to kill all three of them, because if you get stabbed 20 times, there's a pretty good chance that you're not going to make it. Then on top of that, gets set afire. So God's got a plan for that young man. I mean, half have been done to people and they died. This young man survived it. And if you seen him in a hospital bed, you wouldn't think he survived anything. But he come out. He stands, he runs, he jumps, he plays. I mean, it shows video of him. And this cop, this is in Hillsborough County. Now, I'm telling you, not in my lifetime have I ever seen anybody stand up to something so great. He didn't question, he didn't think about it. He knew that that young man had been through enough, and he decided to adopt him and bring him home. Again, African-American boy and a Caucasian father. I'm telling you, God is no respecter of persons. And if you was to talk to that young man or the cop that adopted him, I bet neither one of them know what color either one of them are, because they love one another for who they are, not the color of their skin, not because they speak funny, but because that was his niche in life. I promise you, God had him there for that very time to do what he's doing today. So that's an exciting time. You know, when you get something like that, and something good comes of it. I mean, it was terrible, tragic. I mean, again, I wouldn't have no problem sending that man to prison for the rest of his life, and he shouldn't have a chance of getting out. So I got one more good story for you, and there's in California here, there's a school crossing guard. She's 4'8", and she's real small. Her name is Adrian. This 8-year-old girl was in the clutches of a lady walking across the crossroad, and the 8-year-old looked up and said, "Miss Crossroad Lady," you know. She says, "School crossing guard lady, this lady is not my mother, and I don't know why she's taking me somewhere." Well, this little 4'8" lady bounced in there, and she told that 8-year-old, she said, "You grab a hold of me and don't you let go for no reason whatsoever." And so then the altercation become between, she said that lady was taller than either one of them, so they huddled together and got it. She saved that 8-year-old girl from being kidnapped. You think the mother wasn't happy? Oh, man. It interviewed all them. These are things going on. That lady stepped up again. What could have she done? She could have said, "Oh, yeah, you go on. It's okay." No. She seen the evil. She felt the evil. She stood up for what's right. She took an 8-year-old girl away from the most evil thing that could possibly happen to her. You can't even imagine what would have happened if that lady would have got away with her. Right time, right place. Where does God have you? He's got you in places. He's got you to look around. There's things that we've got to do. Sometimes they're pleasant and sometimes they're not. But what I'm telling you is, this 4'8" tall lady didn't care about the size of the lady that had a hold of that girl. She took her from that girl and told her to hang on to her, just cling on to her, like a kangaroo in a pouch. And then she took steps to make it. So she more likely just saved her life. If not saving her life, saved her from the most evil thing that could possibly be done. So there's things going on that turn out good. It's not always ugly. Now, the last subject I want to talk to you about is tearing this world apart. And that's young people between the age of 15 and 24 committing suicide. And I have a stat here on 2000. In the year 2000, there were 4,800 and some odd young people that committed suicide in 2020. Now that's a lot of people. But on the other hand, it was 1.2 million that attempted suicide. They say 1 out of every 100 succeeds, or something like that. It's just terrible. But it's a crisis in our country. Why are these young people wanting to take their lives? And what they're talking about now is that it is more young ladies take their life than young men. But the young men is very large. So we're talking in 2020 in 2020, 45,979 Americans died by suicide. That's young, old, and everybody. Now that might not seem much when you're talking about 500 million or whatever we're dealing with, but and this is in 2020, and we're in 2022. Things didn't get better. They say there was a 12% increase from 2020 to 2021. Now, then from 2021 to 2022, there was something like a 14% increase. And so it's the third leading cause of death for 15 to 24-year-old people. Now, here's another thing. With that many people dying, somebody has to not be paying attention. And most of the time people say, well, I didn't see anything. I didn't notice any difference in them before they committed suicide. Well, maybe because they weren't looking. When God put them children in our hands, he didn't just put them there to hang around. He put them there to be taught, to be loved, to be lifted up, not to be condemned and ridiculed and all that. You see, it's got to the point where the young people are afraid to speak out. Number one, people will laugh at them. People will tell them, no, everything's going to be okay. It's all right. Just go on. It'll be okay. Now, I had a worker one time years and years ago, and this is back in the 79, 80. This young man was 18 years old. He fell in love with a 25-year-old woman at the time. Well, they had their fling and everything, and so naturally she got tired of him. So she just sent him on the road. He was devastated. He come to me. He said, let's get some work out of town. He said, I can't stand it. I can't stand it. I said, oh, no, it'll be okay. It'll be all right. Well, 2 days later, he took a .45 Magnum, broke into her home, put it to the back of his head and said, put this in your head, and pulled the trigger. 18 years old. Killed himself right in front of the person that he blamed for doing it. That ruined a lot of lives. But see, we need to be aware of how we treat people and how people treat us. People treat me bad, I kick them to the curb and get on down with life. But that wasn't always true. You know, when you get to the point of my age, if they don't like you, go like somebody else. I don't have time for it. But these young people, it does something to them. We have got to get to the point where we're talking to the young people and letting them know that their life does matter, no matter what they think. But we need to start showing it with our physical, not with our lips and not with our voice, but with our heart and with our actions. And so many times in our lives, when our children come to us and say, you know, how serious this is. Oh, don't worry about it. Everybody goes through that. Boy, that's not true. I mean, I've done it myself. I know. I let my kids do whatever they want to do. I was too busy hanging out in bars. And I'm going to be accountable for all that. And that's okay. I deserve to be. I was not a good father. But see, once you realize you're not and you wasn't, you can't go back. You can't change it. You got to do it while what's happening now time. You can't do it next semester or next summer or next winter. When a child comes to you for protection, for understanding, for knowledge, for wisdom, do what God says. Speak into their heart. Speak into their mind. Speak into their life. And man, when they have a broken relationship, we might not think it's anything, but they're devastated. You've got to remember when the first time somebody kicked you to the curb that you loved with all your heart and never could live without. See, we seem to forget that emotions and love and even misdirected love will kill somebody. Because they set their hopes on it. They set their whole desire, their life on it. And the other person is just there playing a game or having a good time, not looking to be serious. I would imagine if we talked to most of those young people before they died, if you got them to tell the truth, it was over someone that discarded them, someone that didn't love them that they loved. And you know what a one-sided love affair is. That's miserable for both parties. Because when it comes time to separate, that party that doesn't love back don't have a problem. They probably don't like hurting you, but they're not going to spend the rest of life with you because they don't even like you, much less love you. And you're all in. You put all the chips on the table and said, that's it. That's what kills them. They don't know where to go. They don't know what to do. They don't know that God in time would cure that. Oh, I remember being brokenhearted so bad when this little Chiquita cut me loose. But you know what? After time in God, I look back on it and I say, wow, how did I ever think like that? But see, that's how it is. When you're in an impressionable time, you parents better start looking. You better start stepping up to the plate. You don't need no stranger stepping into your family and messing with your kids and putting them in a direction. Like me, I was raised without a father, so my mother had a heck of a time. And I ended up getting connected to druggies and ended up in bars and all kinds of crazy things. And you go from one thing to another, you're looking for something that you can't find. You're looking for something that doesn't exist. If you're going to have a relationship and it's going to work, both people have to be working at it. You can't just shine it on for 1 minute and spark it up the next, you know. Your hormones can't dictate your love life, because if it does, you're headed for a bad time. Parents, you need to start looking. You need to start knowing what your children are doing, who they're doing it with, and why they're doing it. Now, this abortion thing, again, I'm not smart enough to know all this. I'm not smart enough to know anything. But I know one thing. I look at these children that are born, then I look at them become such a blessing. Look at these 19 children that were born. Look at the devastation the parents went through. What if they'd have been aborted? They'd have never had that pain to go through, but they wouldn't have had that child for 10 years either. When my son died at 34 years old, I sought God for an answer. I said, oh, Lord, I need to know, my son in heaven or whatever. And, I got an answer. The Lord to me revealed to me, if you knew when this child was born that you were only going to have him for 34 years, would you still take him? Well, it didn't take a second to figure that out. Absolutely, I would take him, even knowing that. But see, if I would have known that, naturally everything would have been different, because all I would have been doing was living till the day that he was going to die. And God said if a man knows when he's going to die, he lives to that day. In other words, that's the only thing that ever matters on this earth. You're not worth anything here. But see, we are worth something. At 81 years old, dingier than a pet coon, I'm worth something. I have a mate that I'm going to take care of until one of us dies, or both of us. So I've got a purpose. But that's not my only purpose. I can do things. I'm here talking with you. Whether you think it's crazy or not doesn't matter. What matters is I'm doing something. And that's what I'm asking all of you out there. Do something. Because if you begin to recognize what brings a person to the point of saying, man, this is it, I'm done, I can't take this world anymore, you got to start watching. You know when your child's happy. You know when they're sad. And you can't back off when you see that. You've got to go forward. Now, here's what you watch for. If your child begins to do these things here, I'm fixing to read you a list. Changing and eating and sleeping habits. Oh, don't you know? Don't you remember when you lost that love of your life? Food was not important. Sleeping was just a misery. But see, these things are temporary, but the person going through them might think they're here forever. Loss of interest in activities or school. They just don't care about anything. Especially those that always cared about it. Now all of a sudden they don't care about it. There needs to be an answer from that person to you. If you're the brother, uncle, aunt, cousin, sister, mother, whatever, you need to go to that person. What's going on here? Why have you lost interest in this? And neglecting one's personal appearance. Oh, man, I remember hanging out in my house 20, 30 days, and I didn't care whether I shaved or whether my clothes were clean or whether I took a bath or whether I didn't. So that's actually one of the first thing that goes is I don't care what I look like, because I've lost the thing that makes me want to live. Obsession with death and dying. More complaints of physical ailments linked to emotional distress. Problems focusing. In other words, focusing on nothing but problems, not cures. Verbal hints such as, I won't be a problem much longer, or if anything happens to me, I want you to know, that pity party stuff. But see, that's to you may sound like nothing, but to them, it's serious. Giving or throwing away cherished belongings. Cheeriness after a depressive episode. You see, they no longer focus on who they are. But I'm going to tell you one more story. I think we got about enough time for it. Now, this is what I lived. After I went through my love them, lost them, never going to live again episode, I learned something. One day, I noticed the sky was blue. I noticed a green in the grass. It was much greener than I'd seen. And I heard the birds singing and all that. I said, wow, this is good. But here's the thing I realized. It was the first day that I didn't think about losing the love of my life. So I went through the years. Then I found the love of my life, my wife Shirley, and she had a nephew. They were planning a wedding, getting ready to have a big old wedding and everything like that. At the last minute, she said, "Can't do it. Not really in love with you." Stopped everything. He was devastated. I talked to him and we talked about it and all that. I said, "Let me tell you something." I said, "You're going to have one year. Plan on this, at least 1 year, maybe before." But I said, "You come back to me in 1 year. Talk to me. Tell me what you feel then." I said, "Here's what's going to happen. One day you're going to wake up and you're not going to think about her. You're going to think about something else." A year later, give or take or whatever, he come to me, he said, "Uncle Herb," he said, "man, you were so right." He said, it was about 7 or 8 months. He said, "I woke up and he said, I seen that blue sky, I seen that green grass. I was happy, I was ready to get up." See, God in time takes care of this. Those are the two things that will keep you going healthy until you die. As long as you allow that time to go by to get rid of the pain and God to walk you into peace. He was so excited when he talked to me. But see, I remember doing that. So I guess I have right along and accomplished this hour. So we have about 30 seconds or so to go. Here's what I want to leave you with. Don't sell yourself short. Protect your children. Watch for the ugly things in life so God can give you the power to take care of them. So you all be blessed. God bless you. I will see you next time.
Mike Briggs did it before. Mike Briggs will do it again.
I started the first ever foot and bicycle patrols in the tower. That was my thing. I got that going.
He will bring them back. Councilman Mike Briggs got the first police helicopter for Fresno, eliminating high-speed chases. Yeah! Councilman Mike Briggs oversaw the largest growth in the police department. Bringing Mike Briggs back to the city council will bring safety back to our community.
This is Mike Briggs. I will make Fresno safer. I approve of this ad.